Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. Today, I'm sitting down with Lawrence Hanley, who is the founder and CEO of Desk Plants. So excited to be jumping in, having some conversation. I was looking at the website this morning. It's just kind of a refresher as I was preparing, and I love the tagline at the top that says "unique, sustainable, and hard to kill." So excited to just kind of dive in, talk, talk about business, talk about your business specifically, all that kind of stuff. So, Lawrence, thank you for being here. Let's dive in with just a little bit of background. You'll give us the, I don't know, 10,000 foot view. Tell us kind of a little bit about your journey and, what led you to founding Desk Plants.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Tanner. This is super fun. Excited to be here. I started this company back in 2018. I had previously been working in Boston in a sales environment, and if anybody knows about the East Coast cities, they're a lot more dense and it's more of like a big downtown area versus Austin and Dallas more spread out. And I noticed when I was working in these offices, there was a lot of ways that people personalize their desks, right? Even though it was kind of the standing desk, moving desk environment of the mid 2010s, and having being in advertising, working with e-com brands, I noticed that there was a way that I could capitalize on. I always wanted to start my own business, so that was kind of my light bulb moment of maybe there's something here. And I was looking for something really unique in a product category. I didn't want to just be hawking t-shirts or hats or whatever, which is kind of a very commoditized product category. So I was looking for something unique that could stand out. And there's a little bit of a higher barrier of entry from a cost and regulation standpoint. And through my research, I found out that plants, does kind of fit that bill. And one of the problems that people love plants on their desk, one of the big problems in a city like Boston or New York or Philly is that there's no Home Depots or big nurseries downtown. So, if you want to go get something nice beyond just a bouquet of flowers from like a florist downtown, you kind of got to go to, maybe a suburb or something like that. And then if you want to lug it in on Monday morning, after you've done that trip over the weekend, what are you going to do? Carry it a mile or two or go on the subway? I mean, it's just super inconvenient. Just picture somebody spilling dirt all over the place. So I figured if there's a way I can get it from a distribution center to a desk, then I'm solving a problem and there's a decent market there. And so that was the idea behind me starting this business. And ultimately, I wanted to create a way to get a product that would promote wellness and a little bit of individuality to a desk, and how people can solve that problem of getting it from the source to that desk in a work environment. So that was the original idea. And I dove in 2018. And that's when I launched my website. That's when I launched the business. And, to start out, we were just going to farmers markets and popping up in little offices here in Austin and, just trying to get the word out there. And that was the original iteration of this business. And in the 6 years since 2018 now? Wow, yeah, it goes by. Since then, there's been some changes and different business models that we've gone through, but we've settled in as being a promotional product supplier. That's how we are today.
Mm, I love that. So talk to me a little bit more about the starting the company, kind of choosing to take that leap. Uh, do you jump in both feet like right away, full time doing it? Was it kind of like on the side to start out with till it got at a certain level?
I'd
Talk to me through
say
that transition.
Yeah, I'd say there was about 18 months of it being a side project. There was no revenue coming in. It was more just product testing, product research, how do I start a company, that kind of thing. And so yeah, about 18 months. And I had a unique opportunity back in 2018. I had been working for an advertising company based out of SF. And out of the blue, they came to us in, I think it was June of that year, and said, "Hey, we're closing down the Austin operation. You can choose to move to SF, New York, or take a severance." And they gave us a month or two to kind of think about it. And I just, at the time, it made sense to me. Like I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, I was living in a pretty cheap apartment, low car payment. So, the risk for me was the lowest it was going to be to jump in 2 feet. Worst case, I figured, hey, 6 to 12 months from now, maybe I lose a bit of money on this, but I can go back into sales having this experience and I'm richer for it. Not necessarily monetarily, but so to me, that was enough. And so my severance date was like August 31st that year, and I started the company on September 4th. And that was the transition phase. It was sort of like, well, I've got a very perfectly lined up opportunity to do this. I know it doesn't always work like that, but I didn't really need the nudge to quit my job. It was sort of presented to me, and I guess there was a bit of a internal battle. I don't know, to do I take another job? Because I was interviewing other places. But it really just dawned on me, I'm never going to have as golden of an opportunity with as low a risk. Not that it isn't risky, but as far as what can be layered on, it was kind of the best opportunity I had. I was like 27 at the time, so that was the process for me, and it was made a little bit easier with those factors involved in my life at that time. But yeah, that was how we got there.
I love it. And I think that's a really relatable type of an experience. I appreciate you sharing it. Did you jump in solo? Did you have business partners at all that kind of came in either right away or down the road? Kind of anything along those lines that you kind of experienced?
Solo. I had enough built up in savings from because I was in sales, and I had enough built up in savings to be able to have some runway. But I went in solo. I didn't have my first contract 1099 employee until like April the following year. So that's about 7 or 8 months of doing it totally solo. So yeah, that was it was just me, and it was me for a number of months.
What does that look like today versus like way back when? So you were, one person doing it solo, kind of wearing all the different hats in the business. How has that changed today? Like what's the current role that you get to play in the business today?
Sure. So, to start, it was wearing every single hat, in the book and just doing everything I needed to. I mean, my first location was in Bastrop. And for those not really that familiar with Central Texas geography, it's a 30-minute drive into the country, basically out of Austin. That was what I had to do. I had to pot the plants, bring them to market, all that jazz. So, I mean, it was all on me. What I'm doing today is I am running essentially a full sales and marketing organization and outsourcing fulfillment to a partner company. And I'm making decisions around how are we going to introduce a new product line? Are we going to be able to, cut in some discounts to this partner because they've done a lot of business with us, like decisions like that. I'm going to trade shows now. I just came back from a really big national trade show in Las Vegas, and I've got some spring shows lined up. So, I'm wearing the hat of being the face of the company and really pushing the sales and marketing side of the organization. Whereas before it was more like hands literally dirty, and doing everything to get the product out there. So quite
Oh,
on that front.
oh, that's so cool. And is the sales and marketing, is that an area that you absolutely enjoy, or are there like pieces in there you're like, as soon as I can hand some of this off, like that's the next piece to go?
Well, I like getting out there. I like meeting people. I like learning about how my product fits into somebody's need, right? So I have a good grasp on my product's value prop in my particular industry, but I didn't know that day one. I certainly didn't know that, year two or three. It took a lot of conversations and a lot of facing pushback and working through no's. So for me, getting out in the field and having these conversations, not even necessarily in person like this, if we're having a Zoom with another rep for another company, for me, I'm able to dial in exactly how we create all of our marketing material, how we pitch our products to people just through conversations, because there's a lot of aha moments that you learn from other people when they're giving you feedback or pushback, or hey, this really worked and like this is why it worked. Like for me, that is the best part about this job is the interaction with people. So for me, the sales and marketing is exactly what I want to be doing. It really, I didn't, in my early 20s when I was just doing a sales gig, I didn't see myself as a creative person. I saw myself as a business person. I don't know. But today, I see myself as a creative person because I'm able to tap into that channel creativity, right? And it's maybe I'm not doing the design work, but I'm certainly coming up with how we position ourselves and the type of messaging that we want to get out to people. And I get to control all that, and to me that's very fulfilling and rewarding.
Oh, I love it. That's going to make this next part of our conversation so much fun because I love chatting about marketing, sales, and all of that kind of stuff. And before we kind of dive a little bit deeper into that, I always like to just start with the general question of like, who primarily does your business serve today? And the way I like to frame it up is essentially, if I'm sitting there and I'm watching this later on, I'm in the audience, how would I know that I'm a really good fit for the products that y'all have, or I might know somebody that I need to refer over to you, especially with some different iterations of the business over the last couple of years. What does that look like today, or how would you answer that question?
Sure. So being in the promotional products industry as a supplier, the nature of the business is we work through a distributor, and they essentially act as a middleman. So the distributor might work with a Dell or a Salesforce, and they represent either a portion of that company, like a certain part of the sales organization, or they represent the entire company sometimes. So what they'll do is they'll come to me and say, "Hey, I've got a great program for Earth Day, and we want to do 600 products that really kind of fit within the Earth Day message of sustainability and connecting to Earth and giving back to our environment and things like that." So our plants really fit into that, and so that middleman, that distributor, would come to us and say, "Well, this is the project. This is who it's going to go to." We price it out to the distributor. The distributor takes a little bit off the top to give us the business, and then we work on the fulfillment. So we're working primarily with promotional products distributors. We also do work with some online retailers on a white label distribution basis. So that's a little bit more of a direct deal, but in a way you could look at that, one partner of ours is a company called Human Centric, and they have direct consumers going to their website, and they could be looked as a middleman because we're selling it through them, and then they sell it on to their customers. And it's a similar model in that we give them a special price, and they then take their margin, and then they sell it onto theirs, and we take care of the fulfillment on the brand.
Got it. So if I'm understanding correctly, the model or the focus for you is like, if you look at your customers, they're primarily going to be distributors and things like that versus direct to consumer. Do you all do some direct to consumer as well, or is it primarily just through distributors and kind of
It's
larger partners?
Yeah, so distributors, and the reason that is when I originally started the business, it was primarily a D2C company. I mean, we got to the point where we even had a brick and mortar in the Domain up in North Austin, which is a really nice, shopping center for those who know the Austin area. And the pandemic really forced us to realize that relying just on that is tough, especially as a bootstrap business.
Mm.
So we first got into the distribution model in the middle of the pandemic, and somebody just called and said, "Hey, can you put a logo on this and send it to my client?" And I just said yes without knowing how the hell to do that. Figured it out. One order turned into many, and then it turned into the business model that we're in today. And when you're so everybody talks about a niche, right? When I started this business, there were probably like two or three big players that had VC backing, so they could go eat the high acquisition costs with the different platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Google and all that. I couldn't because I just didn't have that cash available. So I was kind of relying more on the local market and playing around with that. But when I got into the distribution model, I didn't need to funnel a ton of money into national advertising campaigns. I needed to create network and connections within the distribution world. And it takes a little bit of time. It is a little bit longer, and you won't see as fast a growth. But I realized, well, if I stick to this within 2, 3 years, where I'm at now, I'm going to have a business that is ripe for sort of explosive growth. And we're kind of going through that right now. So that's why I got into distribution. I don't do D2C anymore, simply because there is kind of an unwritten rule. If you're going to go into working with distributors, they don't want you going D2C because you can kind of snake them on things. And I respect that. And I that's the rules of engagement. That's our business. We don't want to mess around with that. And ultimately, that niche, we're really the only company with our product category serving a $26 billion industry. So, is all $26 billion going to come to us? Absolutely not. But there's enough room to play within that industry that we can have some pretty serious wins and carve out a piece of the pie that makes us a very profitable and, high value business in due time.
Ah, man, I love that so much. And I love getting that clarity because it really informs some of the conversation around just like marketing in general. Because
Yeah.
you mentioned at the beginning, when the company was just starting, having some pop ups in Austin, and a retail storefront and the domain, like things like that. And now I imagine marketing is very different for the types of clients that you're essentially working with now. It is more relationship based. It takes a little bit longer. You mentioned trade shows as being kind of a channel that you use. What have you found to be effective for getting the word out there about what you all do to the appropriate type of customers that you now serve?
Sure. So trade shows and email are kind of the two, mainstays of what we do. And, like we do some social media stuff, but it's mainly creating content for my distributor network to then sell on to their clients. So if I make
Mm,
their job easier, they're going to put more of my products and more opportunities. And then, it's just that's just how it works, right? So if I can say create something around Valentine's Day, or I can create some content around why this is a great employee appreciation thing for, or a gift for the employee appreciation month coming up in March, or Earth Day, right? They don't have to think twice about it. I've given them the material. They can then forward it to their company list. And then they come to me with some creative options like, hey, we've got this great idea. Can we talk about how we design their logo on this pot and maybe throw some other items in for a whole kit, and we can do a whole Earth Day kit, that kind of thing. So versus like going to direct to consumer, I mean, it's all about making your products and your brand look super sexy and beautiful, and that's great. It's just you have to be on it every single day, and like, I'm not saying that it's harder or more, work on one way or the other. It's certainly, you got to be a lot more creative and thoughtful and I guess calculated with some of the material that's on the distributor side versus super high volume on the consumer side. But I much prefer the distributor side of marketing because I'm not going after $70 buys. I'm going after $5,000 buys, right? Two, it's just got to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot more calculation and timing and what you're putting together versus just like pumping it out there. You know what I mean? It's a lot less
mhm.
transactional. So I don't know. Does that answer your question? I feel like I kind of went on a little bit of a
Yeah,
tangent,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah. No, that was fantastic because it gives some context there, and there's a number of different ways we can talk through market. We could sit here for like 3 hours and chat through like marketing channels and what's worked and what hasn't for different industries and business models, things like that. But I think just the context of kind of how you shared that is really useful for like actual applicability when it comes to kind of thinking through marketing. Um, so maybe I want to take call it a step back, but when you look at kind of your journey so far, you jumped into entrepreneurship, into business, and started to build and grow from there. There's been some transitions, some changes, things like that as you've grown. When you look back on it, is there any moment that stands out to you, like maybe a hurdle or a roadblock that you had to overcome that's really kind of shifted or helped you become the business owner that you are today? And maybe there's a bunch of them, but is there like one or two that kind of stand out that you could share with us?
I mean, March of 2020, we had a great. I mean, I'm sure this is not that unique, but for us, that certainly is that turning point. So, at going into the start of March, we had a very growing, very bustling, high growth store. I mean, it was becoming more than just a retail store. We were hosting chocolate nights there, wine tasting nights, yoga in the mornings. Like it was becoming more of a community event center than just a retail store. And we had some awesome ideas coming up for April, like So Far Sound, and I'm familiar with them, do like little private concerts
Okay.
in little hidden areas. We were approved as a venue for that. I mean, like there was a lot of cool stuff going on, and all that got wiped off the board. And we went to $0 in the door from that channel, which is our highest grossing channel, like overnight. And I remember it was sort of like that week when it all kind of unfolded. It's like, well, what am I going to do here? And what do I do with my employees? And how am I going to pay the electricity bill? And, I got to negotiate with my landlord. Can we get like some break on rent? Because this is a crisis. And in that week, I had that call that I mentioned earlier in the conversation from this guy over at a company called Swag Up, and That's what really changed. I didn't know it at the time, and it took a few months for me to kind of realize. But once I started seeing these orders come in and they were much higher value because it was a higher volume, and the margin profile was relatively similar, a little bit less because you are doing some wholesale on that front. But what I also realized was the cash needed to sustain that business was much easier to work with, we'll call it, than a retail store. Because you can get in a retail. I mean, you got to put like $120,000 into just inventory to keep everything stocked. So some of your products you're just looking at as cash collecting dust. Whereas this model, it's you can't quite do just in time, but you can get as close as you can to like a just in time model
Mhm.
uh, as possible. Because I kind of, I'm able to, with a lot of projects, get an order in, even if they're on terms, I can then go out, make my orders, and then, I know that I can get the product out within a certain amount of time versus having to sink a ton of money into inventory up front. So that was the big sort of point that I look back to that, taught me a lot about being able to be flexible and pivot, taught me a lot about, looking at a product and seeing how, is there a better way that I can be selling this, right? Is there a better way that I can be marketing this? And then it taught me a lot about uncovering new channels to, just drive in more revenue. And it really forced me to look at profitability because a lot of people will go into entrepreneurship and think, oh man, if I double my revenue month over month and continue to do that, like I'm just going to be great. But at the end of the day, if you're not paying attention to your gross margin and then you're not being really lean with your operating costs, you can run yourself into a very unprofitable and very sticky situation, even if you went from $10,000 a month to $200,000 a month. If your expenses are very linear and not, you're not finding your hockey stick, so to speak, because you're not controlling your margins and your expenses. Yeah, it can be shocking, when you look at P&L a month or two later once all the numbers are in. So that taught me to be a lean entrepreneur, and it taught me to really pay attention to the details and the numbers, because it's exciting to get all those sales, but you got to temper yourself. You got to look at what the business really is doing and how it is surviving. So I learned a lot of lessons in that period. I'm sure a lot of people did, but for me, it was that March, that really forced me to face all the demons, so to speak. And the big question was, are we going to turn the lights off, or are we going to keep the wheel spinning here? And I was determined to keep the wheel spinning, and a little bit of luck and preparedness, it put us into a position where we're able to do that. And I'll finish this part with, ultimately we shut down the brick and mortar and we changed our website and we went fully into promo as a supplier at the end of 2021. So this is our third full year being in promo, and I feel like we've weathered a lot of growth and learned a lot of lessons, and we're in a really good position now because of it.
Oh man, I there's so much that you said in there that I just like lights me up. You actually talk about profit. Thank you so much for actually talking about profit, not just top line stuff. I think that's, as you kind of said, like if it's not paid attention to, it can become a problem like longer term if you're not paying attention to that stuff. And just some of the metrics and just knowing what's going on, like becoming better at the process of business, knowing your numbers, knowing margins, knowing acquisition costs, knowing what channels are better than others, and like if there's anything that anyone takes from this conversation is like learn these lessons from this conversation because they make a world of difference in business. So it gets me excited. So thank you for sharing that story with us.
Sure.
Um, so where do you see things going the next 3 to 5 years as you kind of cast your vision out there for where the business is headed? What does that look like to you, and how does maybe your role change as you continue to grow?
Yeah. So I want to, as we get more into promo and white label distribution, you got your standard product development outlook. But ultimately, where I want the vision of the business to be is I want to be a supplier of products that are high quality. They keep, and this is kind of particular to promo, they keep a logo in a high vis area like a desk without it going in a cupboard or a drawer. Because in my industry, in promo, it's like 85 to 90% water bottles, backpacks, and clothing, which is great. And there's a lot of high quality options out there, no doubt. And I'm not trying to, cast any sort of negative, opinion on that. It's more just I want to be in this industry. I want my position to be a supplier of really unique products of high quality that aren't just tchotchkes, that are going to be, the whole intention of putting a logo on a product is so that it's a marketing ploy, right? It's a part of the marketing strategy for companies. And if it's sitting in a closet for 6 out of 7 days, what's the good of that? So I'm just trying to break the mold a little bit about what type of products can become mainstream and be a really good option for folks to start utilizing so that they do their intended purpose. They keep a logo in a high vis area. They keep people thinking about a product or a company for different use cases. So that's really what the vision is. Obviously, we've got our sales numbers, sales goals, but ultimately, I want to grow beyond just plants. Plants is a great way for us to kind of wedge our way into this industry. But beyond that, we're just really looking to be a high quality supplier of products that have a really good return on investment from a product by product basis to the people purchasing them.
Mm. I love that vision. I love how clear it is as well. So it's just amazing. Well, we've certainly covered a ton of ground in this conversation, and I do want to be respectful of the time that we have today. I've got a few rapid fire questions that I want to shift us over to. I love just getting a few, call them wisdom nuggets out there for the audience, that sort of thing. So when you look at your kind of journey through business, through entrepreneurship, through kind of everything that you've experienced so far, what would you say for you has been your kind of key to success?
Uh, Determination, perseverance. I mean, any entrepreneur, unless you're coming out of the gates with a ton of financial backing, which is the super rare entrepreneur. If you're like the rest of normal entrepreneurs, I guess, I don't know, that's normal sort. But if you're like them, you're gonna go through periods where you lose sleep because you're worried about, can I pay this bill? Can I pay that bill? Can I invest in this new part of my business that I think is going to help grow it? Can I hire this new person? Shoot, I got to fire this person. Like, you can have all those really hard internal conversations. You got to just persevere and remind yourself why you got into this. And for me, it was, I wanted to create value, and I also wanted to be the boss of my own time. The money will come. If you create value, the money will come. You got to not focus on the money. I mean, the money is important, right? You got to be profitable. But ultimately, the main driver has to be value that you're creating for your audience that you're trying to target. And if you do that and you persevere that and you stick to that, honestly, you know, that will keep you going. That will help you through a really tough night or a tough week. It's been key to me to remind myself, like, this is why I'm in it, and there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, not necessarily financially, but like just a reward, a fulfillment of what your mission is. So just reminding yourself why you're in it, and if it's for all the right reasons of providing value and helping people in some sort of way with your product or service, that'll keep you going.
Beautiful. How about a book recommendation or something related to learning and consuming information? And I say that cautious because I know not everybody's a book reader. So
Yeah.
if you've got a book recommendation, awesome. If not, podcast or person that's influential that you would encourage people to go watch videos on, anything like that that you would recommend for the audience.
Sure, I got two.
Beautiful.
I'll go book and podcast. So book, there's a great biography. It might be an autobiography. I can't remember. He might have a ghostwriter. Lee Iacocca. He was the president of Ford and the president of GM, and his journey, it wasn't rags to riches, but he was able to basically get to the top of Ford. And then when he was cut from Ford, he completely rebranded and brought GM back from the almost dead. So his story is pretty fascinating. I think it was very inspiring, and that was a book that I read in just a few days. I couldn't put it down. So that's a motivational book for me. I don't know, maybe not for everybody, but it was a cool journey reading about him. And then my dog walks, my evening rides home, my first million, Sam Parr, and his partner Sean Purry. They are great. I'm sure it's very listened to, but I really appreciate their candor and their sort of down to earthness of their conversations. And they'll have conversations all the way from kind of what we're talking about, like somebody's journey, all the way to they'll bring somebody who's made it and they'll talk about, okay, what's your investment strategy? What are you putting your money into? And there's some really unique ideas in there that kind of get me pretty riled up. And when I listen to one of their podcasts in the morning, if there's a fresh one ready for me on my dog walk, like the rest of my day will be I'll be pretty motivated, more so than just like your average Tuesday.
I love it. Those are two new things I get to add to my list because those have
Awesome.
not come up yet. So I'm excited to put those down. One more rapid fire question. We'll kind of move into the official wrap up here. And this was just kind of fun. If you look at your business today and you had the opportunity to take a little bit of magic dust and sprinkle it all over just one spot, and you only get to choose one. That's the key here. One spot and just sprinkle a little bit of magic dust. You wake up tomorrow morning, it's like 10 times better than it is today. Where would you choose to put that magic dust?
Oh man, what a question. Uh, I would say my organization. That's
Hmm.
where I probably lack, and it's my ADD brain, right? I am one of the least organized people I know, and it's to my detriment. If I could, you know, be able to know where every single piece, every single file, every single, product is, not that I'm like losing things, I'm not, but there's sometimes, some files or mockups, whatever, sometimes I got to like look a little bit extra. It would save me on the aggregate probably quite a few hours a month, which could add up to a day or two, honestly, over a year. It would be my organizational skills for sure. I'm very jealous of people who it was just whether they're born with those skills or it was regimented into their upbringing by their parents or teachers or whatever. I'm jealous that of their, or envious, I should say, of their ability to stay super organized.
That's that's awesome. All right, for those that are watching that want to follow you, connect with you, learn more about the business, anything like that, where can we advise them to go for more information or take next steps?
Sure, you can check out my website. It's www.deskplants.com. It's where my products are. If you're interested and you have a promotional product supplier, distributor, get in touch with them. We're happy to get you some stuff. If you don't, still get in touch with me. I can refer you on to people. Um, our Instagram handle is at desk_plants. And then our LinkedIn, you can find me, Lawrence Hanley on LinkedIn, pretty easy to find. And then just Desk Plants on LinkedIn. And if you want to email me directly, Lawrence, LAWRENCE at deskplants.com. I'm always open to a conversation if it's related to my products or related to my journey, or you just want to chat and meet with a fellow entrepreneur. Because honestly, it can be lonely in the journey, and it's important to make connections and just chat with people. And you just want to have a phone call, or you're local and also want to grab a coffee. I certainly welcome that. Just to have someone to chat with, whatever stage of the journey you're in, it's always good to have somebody that just know is out there, for quick conversation.
Beautiful. And I'm going to highly, highly encourage that everyone that's watching this, at minimum, go into all the links I put in the video description below. At least click on LinkedIn, send Lawrence a direct message, say, hey, saw you on the business spotlight, phenomenal conversation, maybe kind of get some additional conversation going. That's what I absolutely love about these things is, we're focused here in Central Texas. Let's continue to connect business and all that kind of stuff. So highly, highly encourage that. Please go take a moment, click the links, check it all out, connect with Lawrence, and have some fun there. But as we wrap up, I have like one question I always love to end these conversations on, and that is simply, what is most inspiring to you today?
So I saw this quote. Well, it's like one of those little interviews or 30-second interviews they see on Instagram, and they were interviewing this entrepreneur, and he said, what's the toughest position you ever been in? He's, oh, I had this crazy credit card bill, and payroll was due, and we didn't have the cash, and I was able to negotiate with the credit card company to pay him later, so I could pay my employees, blah blah blah. So, but he said this one thing, and it's still sticking with me today. This is probably like a week or two I saw this, but he said, when you're in it, you're up that creek and cash is tough. The only way that you're going to get out of it is you got to sell your way out of it. And that inspires me to just come in, and take advantage what of the day, what are my opportunities right now? How can I go create new ones? What am I gonna do today that's gonna progress me another 5 yards, get me to the next first down, right? Super Bowl weekend, right? Topical. How can I get to that next marker in my pipeline, in my closed business? Because no matter what, the sales will cure a lot of those problems. So you got to sell yourself out of it. That's to me what's super inspiring. It's just stuck with me, and it's just been in the back of my mind as I go through my day.
Beautiful. I absolutely love that. Well, Lawrence, I want to say thank you again for taking the time. This has been a genuine pleasure. I know we took up a little bit longer than 30 minutes, and man, I could just sit here and just chat with you for like 2 hours if we had the time. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time and sharing with all of us today.
Well, Tanner, thanks for having me on, man. It's been a real pleasure. It's been a great conversation, and super pumped to be able to take the time and chat with you today.